try to explain in English, hopefully for those who are familiar, who are get used to practice English in your daily life. Hopefully this material is beneficial and important, and also because you can back and forth to check this material right after this meeting. Okay, today's meeting is about international law subject. Who are the actors, who are the dominant actors, who involve, who determine, and who decide the international law. And there is some tools to test whether it is classified or qualified as international law subject. So in my slide, you may check that uh, some scholar name it as a international law personality or legal personality to test, because not all community, not all entity, are eligible, are qualified to be classified as a international law subject. So there is some tests for that, and from point A until point F, there is some requirement to be eligible. Yeah. The first requirement, they have to support, unconditionally right and obligation of international law. They are able to do anything in international level, not just in domestic or region, but they have to be able uh, to conduct anything internationally. The next one is about the ability to be a party in international agreement making process. Yeah. So this is we can test, when some entity, classified as international law subject, they can be a party when they create a kind of international agreement, like Indonesia, for example, because Indonesia is independent and sovereign state, uh, so that it can easily be a party in international agreement like WTO, EMF, and etc. And the next one is the ability to sue or to get sued. If some entity doing wrong thing, bad thing, let's say, they can be sued, and there will be any responsibility action, to recover or even to punish their mistakes, as long as they are eligible and qualified as international law subject. The next one is about the state immunity, where some personnel, some entity, have a kind of immunity from national law. For example, if there is United Nations staff visiting Indonesia, uh, and let's say they break Indonesian rules, for example, because of their status as United Nations mission, they are immune, or not become a subject from national law, as long as they, if United Nations usually talk about peace and security, as long as the staff, conducted matters relating to the peace and security, they have their immunity. And the last one is about the membership to international organization. So this is a privilege where the entity can be a party from particular international organization. We have many international organizations. I can names like WTO, for example, World Bank, and International Red Cross, yeah, all those well-established international organizations, and mostly the member of those organizations are state. Okay, that's the way we can test, we can assess whether special or particular entity can be can be qualified, once again, as international law subject. One Once this process is done, then you can define this legal subject into its capacity, whether it is full or whether it is limited. We have full capacity legal subject in international law. The first one, and the most dominant one, is state. According to Montevideo Convention, there are three minimum requirements to be eligible as a state. There is a people, citizens. There is an area or territory, and there is a government that rule that area and people. This is a kind of uh, interconnected and integrated requirement, from the first one until the third one. All those community must have, and there is no minimum or maximum requirement. For example, although maybe the territory of San Marino, for example, San Marino, you can check in YouTube or in Google. San Marino is a country, but the people, the number of people there is just around 34,000. 34,000 maybe equal to the people in the city of Denpasar, or even less. I mean, compared to the the sub the sub the sub city or sub district of South Denpasar, for example. And the area is so limited, so narrow, for example, maybe equal to the South Denpasar area where I now live. And it is fine because there is no strict requirement about the number of people, the area, the width of area, and then the government, whether the government it is complete or not. As long as there is a situation, there is a fact that there is people, there is an area, there is a government, then it qualified as a state. And there is also some additional requirement where the country or the state can make a relationship with other countries. And again, there is no strict requirement with the number of state they can cooperate with. Okay, that's the example or the requirement for the entity to be classified as a state. You may check now in the literature, because we have ongoing debate about particular country. For example, like we know, like Israel, like North Korea, or even Macau, or Tibet. You can check from those requirements. You can test, you can analyze. Do they have fulfill this requirement? And this is going to be an interesting discussion, because you may find some debate on this issue. Later, after this class, you can check about the eligibility of those states that I have mentioned. Another point about the full capacity legal subject is Vatican. For those who have a Catholic belief or religion, you may understand more about the historical background about this recognition. Why Vatican is special or have a privilege because international community respect respect the nature or the historical contribution from Vatican for the modern civilization. So as a respect, then Vatican have been entitled to be state equal to state. Yeah. Although, as you know, Vatican they have uniqueness. Yeah, the government a bit different, the people also a bit different, and the area is so limited, so narrow. But because historical contribution, yeah, then Vatican is Vatican like we are uh, saying now. That's for the full capacity. For the limited capacity, limited capacity. Why we call it limited? Because there are some condition on that. Yeah. They are legal subject as long as or only if some requirement, some conditions are met. The first one is International Red Cross. Yeah. International Red Cross usually manage or responsible for humanity action, humanity affairs. Yeah. So as long as International Red Cross conduct humanity affairs, humanity action, then they get right or they get status as international legal subject. This also apply to another international organization. Yeah. Every international organization has their own rules and function or even tasks. Yeah. We have World Trade Organization. Yeah. Trade only if managed trade, that organization can be eligible for international law or being a subject of international law. This also applies to, for example, United Nations. United Nations usually manage matter relating to peace and security, as long as if they conduct peace and security mission, they are legal subject. IMF, International Monetary Fund, as long as they manage monetary matters, then they have been qualified as legal subject. And another international organization. So the limitation relate to the function, relate to its function as international organization. And you can check or you can analyze from the name of those international organizations. Yeah. The next one is about individual. Individual. And this is becoming more interesting because not all individual can be a subject of uh, international law. Yeah. There is some Rome Statute explaining how far and uh, the ability of individual to be recognized or to be classified as legal subject. And this related to the matter relating to violation and crime that they have conducted. Not all violation, not all crime, it related to there is a qualification, if they commit any quote unquote extraordinary crime, like crimes against humanity, crime against peaceful activity or war crime, that individual can be brought to the international level court. instead of national court. Let's say, for example, if usually Indonesian law will be applied to individual who commit crime within the territory of Indonesia. Yeah, when the locus delicti happened in Denpasar, for example, the Denpasar strict court will decide its cases. But if that individual commit crime and classified as crime against humanity, for example, then that individual that person especially, can be brought to the international court, not national court. Yeah, we have kind of international court, let's say International Criminal Court and International Court of Justice. The next one, the next entity is belligerents. Yeah, the group, the community want to fight for their independence by opposing the ruling government. Yeah. We have the history of, for example, DITII movement, PRRI Permesta, Indonesian Communist Party (PKI). We have also GAM in Aceh and now in Papua. But not all rebellion or belligerent can be qualified as legal subject because they have to meet this requirement. Yeah. They have to have like strict and fixed organizational structure. Who actually the leader, the first leader, the second leader, leader in the central, leader in the middle, leader in the lower area. Yeah, there must be any hierarchy to be shown, to be revealed. Yeah, no hidden, no incognito situation. Everything must be clear in terms of the organization. The second one is the identity. Yeah, they have to have like the flag, the language, the uniform, and etc. to show to to denote that they have their own identity. It has to be clear. It has to be well defined. Yeah, not in hidden, especially. The third one is about the effective occupation. In which area they are exist. Belligerent must have an area or territory, and the people inside its territory must support that movement. So that's pretty, I think it's pretty hard, yeah, to be a recognized belligerent in international work. Yeah, they have they have hierarchy, they have identity, they have to occupy specific, clear and specified territory, and the people within the territory must support them. Not all, yeah, not all belligerent can be qualified as international law subject. You can check now after this class, yeah, the history of Indonesia when many rebellions, many uh, belligerent movement uh, have been have been undertaken, and hopefully not many more will do the same thing, yeah, because it will threat our national integrity. But from the academic discussion, you can check from the any previous experience, any story that Indonesia had, yeah, which movement uh, can be classified as international law subject. And we have also another entity that's still in ongoing debate, yeah, where multinational corporation and non-governmental organization uh, are not yet qualified because some scholar still debating the capacity, the personality of those entity to be qualified as international law subject. Okay, I think that's all my brief overview about international law subject. And hopefully after this class, you have chance to check this material again and find out some cases relating to this material.